Hello and welcome to Barely There, podcast about your Chicago Bears. How you guys enjoying the new-ish intro? I mean, obviously we got to get some more audio of me and my boy Lucas being Jagoffs, but yeah, looking nice. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow us on Twitter at Barely There Pod. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, start shooting us some comments because we can actually get them. I know Twitter sucks when it comes to that. But Lucas, my guy, how's it going, buddy?
It's going well. I also want to clarify that it's spelled Bearly. It's not spelled the appropriate way. So follow us at Barely, spelled with like Chicago Bear, as the preface there. I'm doing well, man. A lot of people are upset. The sirens are going off because everyone hates Ryan Poles. Uh, on brand for Chicago Bears Twitter these last 7 days that all the actions happened. So, just looking to dive in and talk about some of the changes that we're seeing.
Yeah, man, I'm kind of feeling the same way. It's been a wild week. Let's just say that since the last time we were on this podcast, it has been one crazy ride. And obviously, the elephant in the room, I feel like we have to talk about it, is the Khalil Mack trade. As a fellow giant Khalil Mack guy, I know you were big on him. How could you not be, honestly, as a Bears fan? But it was kind of something that you felt that might have been coming. I don't know, man. How you feeling about it? The Chicago Bears got a second and sixth round pick from the LA Chargers, almost called them San Diego, which they still belong there. But pairing them up with Joey Bosa out there, so that's gonna be pretty nasty. But yeah, what's your thoughts on it, man?
Just in general, they made a few signings. Like they're clearly pushing all in, and it's funny because they didn't even make the playoffs last year, and they probably should have, but they are clearly pushing all in. And I mean, it's tough, right? Because you look at Khalil Mack was the beginning of that new pace era, really, right? And I feel like a lot of us felt like that team was very good and underperformed and kind of dissolved pretty quickly there. But there was a really nice core of talent there for a while. Of course, then Burton gets injured. Gabriel's not, able to finish out his second season with concussions eventually. So it was tough. And Mack was the biggest piece there, right? But when you really think about Khalil Mack and what he's going to do, it's the best move for both parties. Like he's got an opportunity. He's getting towards the tail end of his prime here. He's got a legitimate opportunity to be on a roster that's stacked up, that has every chance to go and compete in the AFC West over there. And the Bears got some draft capital back. At first, I really thought that they didn't get enough for him because of what the Von Miller trade was. But then when you look at the Chargers taking on their contract and how the Broncos took on Von Miller's contract and that deal, you kind of understand why they were able to get a little bit more, and how it's just going to kind of reset the books for the Chicago Bears starting in 2023. So when you really look at it, I mean, 20 whatever $million on Jared Goff's contract that the Detroit Lions ate was worth one first round pick. So them eating that money, it's essentially like they got a 1, a 2, and a 6 is how I kind of justify it in my head, right? It was something that had to happen, and to be honest, ripping off the Band-Aid was probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, man. I wanna preface this with the idea that I kind of had a feeling a trade was going to come. Lucas, you can vouch for me. I was kind of still defensive about the idea of having Khalil Mack this upcoming year. I was very, very aware of the salary cap thing. So for the most part, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. At first, obviously, I was very upset.
I'm
Well,
I'm
dude,
not crying.
I got my Ryan Poles slander out of the way right off the bat. So it was probably a good thing. When it comes to ripping the Band-Aid off, I said about everything I need to say about Ryan Poles right away. And that's fine because now I can actually look at it from a realistic angle. The Khalil Mack contract was killing us, man. That was definitely something that was going to hurt a lot of moves we're going to try to make towards the future. I don't know if I necessarily totally agree with your idea that it's worth a first round pick, but money to be able to be spent in free agency and on your own players, that is definitely an invaluable part of it. So yeah, I kind of had a feeling it was going to happen. I still feel like there was value to be made there. I feel like if we got a second and a sixth round pick on a down year of Khalil Mack, an injured year of Khalil Mack, what could you have gotten in a year where he goes off? You know what I mean? What would we gotten in a year if he played all 16 or all 17 this upcoming year, gets 10 sacks, maybe a couple forced fumbles, and hovers around 50 tackles where he usually does. That's kind of the only perspective I was at. But at the same time, I've accepted it. It was something, like you said, it was ripping a Band-Aid off. It hurt. I got the Khalil Mack jersey hanging up in my closet, and I'm still going to wear the fuck out of it. But it does make a lot of sense moving forward, especially with what Poles has done with like the rest of the roster, especially when it comes to some of the roster cuts. It makes sense. It makes sense. And to have 3 picks in the top 100 in this upcoming draft, even with me not being someone who's in love with the draft, it's still a pretty nice feeling because we could probably, if Poles drafts correctly, we could definitely still get some players out of this draft.
Well, and that's the major thing, right? You're not going to be able to replace Khalil Mack with a second round pick and a 6th round pick. It's just not going to happen. The Raiders tried to replace Khalil Mack with 2 firsts and whatever it was, a third for a second swap, and that did not happen. They ended up with a running back and a safety. You know what I mean? So you're not going to replace Khalil Mack. He will be missed, but it's really just the dawn of a new era. And there is a new era for one more former Chicago Bear that we're not going to cover a ton, but he may get some shout outs over the year. And that's Mitchell Trubisky, because Mitchell Trubisky signed a prove it deal with the Steelers. And I mean, I sent out a tweet, but it was like 2017, he's a bust. 2018, it's all Matt Nagy. LOL, right? Like all Matt Nagy. 2019, he sucks. 2020, Nick Foles is going to fix everything. 2021, if he was a starting quality quarterback, he would have been on a starting caliber team. 2022, he is now a starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a much more stable, well-organized, just all around better organization than the Chicago Bears in terms of functionality. My love still is with the Chicago Bears, but I will be silently rooting for Mitch. Here's the thing about it, right? I think he made the right move going to Buffalo by resetting and being in a stable franchise and being a backup to a kid that had very similar problems coming out of college as him in terms of the accuracy issues. And he went and what it seemed like ironed out some of those wrinkles, reset, got his confidence back. And now he's taking another deal that I think it's only like $7 million a year guaranteed. And then you can get up to 14 or something like that. Great deal for the Steelers, by the way, because they've already started investing in Mitchell Trubisky and signing James Daniels, re-signing a tackle. They signed another lineman, so their line was an issue. They're already investing in the kid, and they're able to do that because they got him at a reasonable contract. And I think he probably could have gotten a lot more money in one of these other places that have vacancies, but they're all dog shit. So he took his best opportunity to be a winner. And that's why I always liked him, because to me, it seemed like Mitch, if he would have worked out in Chicago, he would have been the type of guy that would have been like, yeah, just, pay me whatever's left over after you build your team in the salary cap. Like, work me into the salary cap. Don't fuck me because I'm a quarterback. And like, we know what the market demands, but if you need to give me 32 million when everyone else is making 47 in 3 years, like that's fine. We'll deal with that. I felt like he would do that. But that's just kind of my take on the thing. I'll be silently rooting for him. If you're not a Mitch fan, you probably aren't, like you would have history with us. If you're a first-time listener and you're not a Mitch fan, we're not going to blatantly talk about him all the time, but you know how we feel. And yeah, I'm just rooting for the kid, in his corner.
Isn't that kind of like that's kind of the flip side of having like a top 15 quarterback, like a middle of the pack quarterback. Like, sure, he's not going to set the league on fire. He's not going to put up, Aaron Rodgers MVP numbers. You know what I mean? He's not going to go absolutely bananas every single time he's out there, but he's going to have some damn good games for you. He's not going to lose you a lot of games as long as you are, capable of calling an offense, which I feel like a guy like Brian Daboll obviously proved last year. And if a guy like Brian Daboll signs off on Mitchell Trubisky, then I feel like the rest of the league should really take notice. And it was very obvious that they did. But, I really like that money point that you brought up, Lucas, because you would never have to pay a Mitch Trubisky. It didn't matter what he would have done in Chicago, even if we would have ended up winning a fucking Super Bowl with Mitch, and I'm not going to go too much into the past and talking about things that didn't happen, but like at no point did I feel like we were going to have to pay him like top quarterback money. Never, because, and the biggest thing I've always heard about Mitch from everywhere he's been is how much of a leader he is, how much guys love playing with him, regardless if they think he is the best option at quarterback or not. Because obviously in Chicago, even if you know what's going on in the locker room during the week, you still kind of have that doubt in your mind. Like, is it Mitch? Is it Nagy? Like, we don't really fucking know. Sometimes Mitch does make missed throws, but it's obvious Nagy has problems calling on offense. But regardless, you've only heard positive things from teammates, man. You've never heard anyone go full Jalen Ramsey on Mitchell Trubisky, you know what I mean, who played with him. You never heard even Allen Robinson with his agent insinuating slander on Mitchell Trubisky, during 2020. There was never like Allen coming out and being like, yeah, my quarterback's garbage, because it was never like that. And that's one thing I think that says a lot about Mitch. And it says a lot about a guy who's going to reset his career, going to an organization that knows how to win, going to a coach that knows how to win, and a coach who's going to be able to get out of his way, let him run his offense the way he did. Because, you look at what Mike Tomlin did with Ben Roethlisberger. He kind of let him run the show on offense. Obviously that was a double-edged sword because Ben was kind of a dick, but Mitch isn't going to be that. He's going to be able to be a leader on offense. He's going to be able to have all the tools in the toolbox. He's going to be able to do what he wants. And that's going to be something he's had for the first time in his career, because he certainly didn't have that in Chicago. But anyway, moving forward, because, dude, me and you could sit here and just, give handies to Mitch all
day long.
Like no doubt. Like,
I just wanted to get that out there. Just like, hey, we're still rooting for you, homie. Like, I'm glad you're in a good spot. And if he can't do it here, that's it. He's done. This is his last shot. You know what I mean? Because there was a lot of optics that involved Nagy, and we talk about leadership qualities, and it's not like we don't think Justin Fields has those same leadership qualities, but he's in a stable organization that is clearly, has weapons, has a really good running back. And now they're investing in the offensive line. The defense should give him some leeway to make some mistakes. So you got no excuses after this, Mitchy guy.
Yeah, no, this is definitely like the last big stop, especially when you have a guy like Chase Claypool to throw to. Who knows? They could potentially bring back Juju as well. There's definitely weapons on that offense. They have a good running game. They're balanced. I can't think of the tight end's name off the top of my head, but the rookie tight end.
Stud.
Yeah, he just had a pretty good rookie season. Yeah, so that's there's definitely a lot trending in the right direction in Pittsburgh. So this is Mitch's shot. I'm really excited for him. Like I said, we'll kind of cut it off here. Otherwise, we will sit here and talk about Mitch. Like, I'll toss on my cream fucking colored Mitch jersey right now, but I don't want to. But yeah, man, wishing the best. Always been a big Mitch guy. But anyway, moving forward, now we've gotten kind of past the Khalil Mack and the Mitchell Trubisky news. That was kind of hot last week. Moving into this week, we have some longtime Chicago Bears players hitting the cutting board, man. Eddie Goldman gets cut. We also get Danny Trevathan getting cut. That wasn't really a surprise. What are the cuts that surprise you the most, Lucas, if any do? What are the ones that maybe you saw it and you're like, wow, that's a real shame.
I didn't see any. Well, I love Eddie Goldman, and I didn't see. I thought all the cuts made a lot of sense to me. Right, Trevathan just officially got cut. We knew that was going to happen. I highly suspected Goldman. I mean, I just feel like it is what it is. You know what I mean? We said on this podcast, expect there to be a 50% different roster than last year. Like, there was so many people on Twitter being like, oh yeah, we got this guy and we got this guy and we got this guy. Like, we don't even know. Now Mooney's a bit drastic. I'll use Kmet. Like, we don't know how Getsy and Poles feels about Kmet. He could easily be a trade piece. Like, we have no idea. So we're talking about like core members. That's why you got to take a year to really look at the land and see what you have on rookie contracts to see if you could build around some of those guys, because that's what successful organizations do. But if you don't like those guys on those rookie contracts, you're going to try to get capital back to get players back on those rookie contracts. I mean, it just math. I said rookie contracts 7 times there. I saw your eyes start fucking rolling in the back of your head. But at the end of the day, like, none of these moves truly surprised me. I predicted 80% of the roster will be completely turned over by the start of 2023. Fuck, man, it's looking like it's going to be sooner. I'm pretty surprised for the money that Jakeem Grant got. I'm surprised we didn't try to retain him. That's one guy he wasn't cut, but he was a UFA and like he didn't get a ton. I thought that was someone that should have been retained, but that's not what happened. So Pat O'Donnell got cut, right? That's kind of surprising.
We let Pat walk
You just let him
technically,
walk,
and
okay? Yeah,
I guess
he's been on
it's
1-year deals for like the past 12 years.
yeah, and I guess it's not outside the realm of possibility that he does get signed back, but I can imagine after just doing 1 year deal after 1 year deal, he could probably want a little bit of stability, and that might just not be something we're willing to give him. I would say really none of these cuts surprised me personally. Trevathan for sure. Like I loved what Danny T did in his first few years in Chicago, but it was very obvious that his body failed him.
Him and Hicks
Eddie,
were the starting pieces of the new defense. Like we saw it moving that way in 2017, and then we overloaded it with fucking Roquan and what's it called? Like Prince was a big part of that too.
Eddie
There were
Jackson.
some really good players on that defense, actually.
Yeah, no, for sure. 2018 is one of my favorite defenses to even just go back and watch. Like
even 2017, they were top 10. Like you saw it building for sure with Vic.
Yeah, and that's why it was so cool. Like when we ended up drafting Roquan, I personally really wanted him. Like I wanted him badly. So it was awesome that we ended up falling on him because like it just felt like an abundance of riches. And in that same offseason, that's when we ended up trading for Khalil Mack. And like 2018 was such a roller coaster ride. Like it's a year I'll never forget for unfortunately all the wrong reasons, but there was just a lot of positives going into that season that really you could have put anybody a head coach and they would have succeeded.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I guess, like I said, none of them surprised me, but I guess the biggest shame, the one that kind of really bugs me has to be Tarik Cohen because like it wasn't anything of his fault of why he got cut, but it made sense why he was cut. He's a guy that he was electric. That was another guy in 2017 that we brought in, and it was very obvious he was one of the best players on the field every time he was on it, the way he was being used. 2018 obviously really took off, being able to be that combination back with Jordan Howard and, gets his nice contract, which I thought at the time he deserved. I don't think he got overpaid on that contract for what he was producing for us, especially for what he was doing on special teams and being receiver out of the backfield and being used in the slot. I didn't really love that, but regardless, he was very versatile. And then to see kind of how everything went after he got injured and really where his body just has not responded to him since, it was a very, very sad ending to a very promising career that we were looking at for Tarik Cohen.
Yeah, man, I'm a big Tarik Cohen guy, not only because he was productive when he played, but he was like one of those motor enthusiasm.
He had small man syndrome, something fierce, and it was
something awesome. He was one of those effort guys that always gave everything, coming from an HBCU, getting drafted, like no one knowing who he was, having to earn every bit of what the fuck he got. And yeah, I do think he got a fair contract, especially like imagine Tarik Cohen being used in Andy Reid's system. Not in Andy Reid's system, but with Andy Reid coaching him, because he was in a broke ass version of Andy Reid's system. But just that, like to me, like I fully resonate with what you're saying, because for his career, it's sad. He could have, to me, I think he could have had a very Darren Sproles like career. Always been that guy that's just like, but for some reason, Darren Sproles tore his ACL 12 times, like, and he would come back mid-year. Wow, he was insane. But he was always that guy where he was dependable. You can give him, a draw on 3rd and 8, and he might get you a first down. Like he might be able to do that for you when you're backed up in your own territory and you're trying to get some room punting, whatever. Like he just added an excitement element to the game. And I appreciated him for what he was, how he interacted with fans, like all that stuff. So to me, his contract didn't make or break the Bears, right? It was Matt Nagy's incompetence and Ryan Pace's continue to mortgage the future to keep things around. And that's why the fucking Matt contract got so out of control. Like if we didn't have all that extra money and restructures on his book, he was going to be a $30 million cap hit. His contract is only supposed to be for $22 million. Like that's what he was going to be getting an extra $8 million fucking dollars. So when you say the salary cap doesn't exist, just restructure, that's the type of situation it puts you in. It puts you in a situation where you have to sell away a most likely future Hall of Fame player for a fucking 2nd and a 6th. Like that's what it does to you. So Yeah, Tariq Cohen, a lot of people got angry about his contract and like were really being just ruthless to him because he didn't come back and because something happened with his knee in the process of trying to come back. Holy shit, did I just lose you? Oh wow. I pressed something on my computer and everything.
No, I'm in. We're still
Yeah,
good.
no, I lost everything on my screen. So to me, I have a completely different perspective. I'm happy for him, man, because you think of it, he wasn't getting big money as a 4th round pick. He was making really nothing. That extension, if it doesn't happen, his life is completely different. Like he hit pen to paper less than 24 hours after his career could possibly be over. Now I would love to see a comeback. I hope to see one. But it sounds like he got cut because he couldn't pass his physical. So it's like I'm not gonna be upset with Poles for that, but it's like, dude, think of how much different that is. Like, sure, I don't worry, Bears, like fellow Bears fans, like this guy's life is completely changed because I mean, it's good money being on a rookie contract, $640,000 a lot, whatever. But you go through that pretty fucking quickly. Like now he is set for life, and I'm happy for him because of that. Because if he never comes back, at least he got that extension, and it's like the Bears weren't fucking going anywhere either.
Well, dude, and I feel like people kind of lose sight of that. I've kind of been a proponent of that for years. Is people forget that these are human beings, dude. Like we love what they do on a football field. When we see them in uniform, they look like, they're part of the team and stuff like that. And that's fine. But like, these are human beings outside of the football field. And at the end of the day, man, it's not our money, as long as he doesn't kill the cap. I don't care. Like, did you care when Zach Miller was getting paid to stand on the sidelines after one of the most like catastrophic injuries we've ever seen?
No,
like, no,
absolutely not.
Because it didn't affect my pocket whatsoever. And it didn't affect anyone else's pockets. Like, you can complain about like going and signing like a Julius Peppers type deal with somebody or fucking, okay, never mind. It's a bad example. Jared Allen. Like, you can complain about that. That's fine because that killed the cap room. You know what I mean? Or
yeah.
you can.
Let's even keep it in context right now. You can complain if fuck, how am I blanking on his name? You can complain if the Bears go ahead and sign Armstead. Like, to me, that is a stupid fucking signing because he's looking for what, $25 million, and the guy's, you're lucky if he only misses 2 games in the year. Like, that is fucking dumb, and that completely upends your entire cap. Is he incredibly talented when he's on the field? Yes. Do I want there to be a $25 million hole in the offense fucking 7 times a year? Absolutely not. I don't care. Like, if he comes even at a reasonable deal, like a $18 million deal, I'd be like, okay, that's worth it. Like,
well, dude, and
take the risk for that, but you're asking for failure. That's like paying Christian Kirk up to $21 million a year average.
Well, it feels like a win now move almost. You know what I mean? And that's not the type of moves we need to make. We need to be able to build our offense throughout the draft. And I guess this is kind of a good time to get a point across that I was thinking about earlier is like, are we so sure? Like, dude, we just drafted Tevin Jenkins in the 2nd round last year. And I understand that wasn't Poles' guy, but are we really sure we want to give up on the entire idea of him ever playing left tackle? Because, dude, if this is a year where we do not expect to win and we do not expect to compete, why the hell would we not at least try to see what he can do at left tackle in a healthy season? You know what I mean? Like, obviously you bring in guys, you draft guys, you bring in competition. You always want competition on a young team and a rebuilding team. That's how you get diamonds, dude. It's as simple as that. But like, why not try Tevin Jenkins at left tackle before we decide he's either A, a right tackle, or B, a guy we need to put inside, or C, a guy that's a bust? Because I've already seen a lot of those takes online, and I'm not there yet, man. Tevin Jenkins, dude, his first few games last year, yeah, he was undisciplined, man. He was a rookie left tackle, dude. He's a rookie offensive lineman. That's going to happen, especially with a guy who's got a little bit of a motor to him, He's a guy who's a little bit of a hothead. And when Poles was talking about the offensive lineman he wants on this team, dude, how does Tevin Jenkins not pop in your head?
That's the only guy. That's what I was going to say. Like, that's the only guy that fits the bill of what Ryan Poles described on what he wants in the offensive line. I mean, so he's the opposite. He's the anti-Germain Ifedi. He's the one that got slapped by Germain Ifedi for sticking up for his fucking quarterback.
Well, that's what I mean. And that could be a guy that we could see get an opportunity before we decide we're going to spend a ton of money. Like, this is not the offseason to spend the money. We could set up a contract where we kick money down the road, or we could wait a year, see what we have in the core of the roster, kind of similar to what I was talking about last week, And then if we see glaring holes going out of next year into the next offseason, we have so much fucking money to spend that we can then address real issues at that point. Like, people pretend that offensive linemen aren't available every year. It's just not true. There's always there's always at least like 4 or 5 top tier offensive linemen that kind of sneak their way into the market. Maybe not top tier, like in relevance, like top 5 at their position or anything, but like in that kind of top 10, top 15 area, which, dude, if you can get a top 15 offensive lineman at their position in the league right now, that's not a bad fucking thing to have. That's why a guy like Cody Whitehair is looking like he might end up sticking around in Chicago, but we will see. But yeah, man, I'm not ready to toss a ton of money right now at anybody. So
anyone, dude.
unless they're fucking 24 or younger. That's about where I'm at.
The only guy that I was like cool with paying is if the Bears traded for Amari Cooper, which I'm a little upset that they didn't explore that market, because when you really look after franchise tags and after everything, there was no bona fide number ones left. It was just Amari Cooper. And what did they give up? A 6th-round pick for him? So you had the money to do it. And I would have liked to see that, but they didn't. They didn't do it. They're sticking to their plan of wanting to hit the second and third waves of free agency, get value signings after the market has numbers drop, which it's probably a day delayed because Jacksonville fucked everything up per usual by signing a bunch of players that have no business being signed to egregious money, which is like their trend. So if you want the Bears to spend a ton of money, go look at every Jacksonville Jaguars offseason and you'll find yourself in that place. I know, because oh wow, Miles Jack to the Steelers, 2 years, $16 million. That's a nice deal for him.
Speaking of the Jaguars being Jags.
Yeah. Jacksonville Jagoffs. That's I forgot that's a rule that they're no longer referred to the Jaguars after that time. They're no longer referred.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I just think I think letting Daniels go, like letting some of these guys go, makes a lot of sense. For what, I mean, it's very on brand, and I had a tweet that kind of blew up a little bit, but the man told you his plan. You were so upset with Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy and injuries not being transparent and what's going on with Tevin Jenkins, and oh, he's pulling a sled up a hill and he was supposed to come back and now he's out another 6 weeks, but no one's giving you any clarity, which, not to mention, the Bears did hire a new strength and conditioning and medical staff and stuff like that, because you saw things like that with Tariq Cohen, Trey Burton, like continually in the Pace and Nagy era. There was something going on with their medical staff. I'm glad that they are going in a different direction in terms of that. And that's another thing too, that you're not taking into consideration with Tevin Jenkins, is he was out for most of the year and then he came back and he was, yeah, of course, you got guys that are in mid-season form and he's coming out there as a rookie with his deer in the headlights. Like, of course he's going to take his licks. It's not going to take away what you saw on tape for him. Now, I'm not going to like come out and crown him as a bona fide starter at left tackle or anything like that, but you can't discredit the nastiness he played with in college. And I do believe he will be at one spot on the offensive line. If it doesn't work out at left tackle, which I don't even know if they're going to try him out there, maybe they will. I really liked Larry Borom as a left tackle. Like, I'm not going to say he's this elite level, but he's better than Charles Leno was when Charles Leno was young, and he was pretty promising. You know, his career arc didn't go like this. It just stayed like that. But like, maybe Borom has more of an arc, you know, maybe he has a possibility to really develop into a top tier left tackle, because he played well when he was put in. Anytime Jason Peters was taken away or whatever, and then he played well at right tackle as well. So I don't know why we would kick him inside the guard when we need tackles. I mean, we need everything really, but
yeah, I mean, and I feel like we're going to get creative with how we address it. I wouldn't be surprised if we were big on the undrafted free agent offensive lineman market. Especially, dude, our GM was literally an undrafted free agent offensive lineman, so I could definitely see that. You know, and he's going to look for versatility. He's going to look for guys that can kind of switch in and out. The biggest thing, like, I really like Larry Borom. I agree with everything he said. I think the only thing that's really stopping me from like buying in completely on him is kind of like how we sold ourselves on a guy like Sam Mustipher and how that ended up panning out.
Very true.
Like, we were all in on Sam Mustipher. Anyone who says that they weren't last offseason is lying to themselves.
He played really well when he stepped in, but it raised the bar from Rashad Coward. That was the difference. We saw we thought we had a starter because the ex-head coach trotted out a guy that had no business starting one game, let alone, almost 2 full seasons.
Well, and that's the thing is, do we see that bar continue to raise with the next, offensive linemen that we bring in? And I feel like this is a good segue to kind of get into some of the moves that we've made over the past few days. But last night, one of the moves that we made was for Lucas Patrick, obviously talking about offensive lineman here. He's a guy who's played every position on the offensive line. He's a guy who knows how to block for a all-star quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. It's as simple as that. Green Bay's not going to allow anybody out there to block for their $50 million a year man, and that's a guy who showed up, man. He can play every position, center, guard, tackle. His PFF numbers rate really well. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of PFF, so I'm not even going to bother. But I really like the move, man. I really like this idea that we're going to try to get some, maybe not, we're not going to get high-priced veterans. We're not going to go sign an Armstead. I don't think that's going to happen either. But I could see us taking some shots on some of these guys who've been versatile on good teams, get good players off of good football teams. It's as simple as that. It seems like a pretty low risk move. Seems like a guy who could start if he needs to, potentially could be the starter week 1. Regardless, it gets more people in the building. When it comes to the offensive linemen, there can never be too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, we want competition as much as humanly possible.
Especially at 2 years, 4 million or 8 million, whatever it is, it's like nothing.
Yeah, well, I think his cap hit the first year is like 2.5, and then his cap hit the next year is like 5.5. So, I mean, it's more or less like if he proves that he's worth it in his first year, then he's good to go for his second year. If not, we can easily cut ties without it costing too much on us. And those are the types of moves that we need to make right now. Those are the types of moves, unless you get a guy like, a top tier guy that you think is going to be a cornerstone for the next few years. Those are the type of moves you want to make.
Yeah, actually, that's a perfect time. I'm going to jump in real quick because a lot of people are like furious about us not jumping and making these huge moves. And it's like, if I look at every player that was not either re-signed to their team or franchise tagged or something along those lines, like, there's only maybe 4 or 5 guys that have been signed at a reasonable number that I'm like, damn, I wish the Bears would have pursued that. Like, Cooper was one of them. Like, in Tomlinson, if you want to interior lineman, I believe he went to the Jets. Like, that's another one of them that I was like, okay, that should have been a signing. Like, that's reasonable money. He's a very productive player coming from a system that, was kind of the father of the new Shanahan system and gave birth to all you guys. So Getsy's correlated to it. It's like, that to me was one of the only moves. But when you look at a guy like Lucas, I mean, first off, every Packers fan that I saw on Twitter was upset about it. So that's a great sign already. Just the fact, even if he doesn't play well and it pissed off and upset Packers fans, it's so low money that it doesn't bother me, right? That's a win right there. Aaron Rodgers described him as like, hey, he's the dude. Like, we fucking love him here. Aaron Rodgers doesn't really throw praise to a ton of people on his team. He's kind of selective and he's a cocksucker, as we know. And then on ESPN, he had the third best. The third best run block win rate. Third best run block win rate. That's a lot of. I was gonna start saying.
Yeah, you were kind of having a moment there.
Yeah, no, I went into a little bit of a pause, but I had to.
Yeah, no, I mean,
my whole life.
Yeah, I mean, dude, picking up off of that, he rates really well. Like you said, he gets praised from the right people. He's got the Luke Getsy connection, which is why I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up targeting, another Packer or two. And dude, he looks like a fucking offensive lineman, man. You know what? That is one thing I'll give the Green Bay Packers credit is they got them beefy boys up there.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like if you put Lucas Patrick, and I'm not doing a direct comparison like skill wise or anything like that, but like if you put Lucas Patrick next to James Daniels, you're probably a little impressed physically by Lucas Patrick. And he has athleticism too. So I mean, just an absolute freaking big dude. Like, easily looks like he could house like 3 fucking Riccobene breaded beefs.
Yeah, and I just don't understand the James Daniels, like, oh my God, we should have signed. Like, dude, he did not get big money A lot of people thought he was going to get upwards of $10-12 million in the market. You think about it, dude. He was supposed to be by far the best interior lineman in that draft, and the Bears took him right at the beginning of the second round, right? He was supposed to be the best center prospect in like the last 5 years. That's all we heard about. All we heard about. The guy got to the league and couldn't even make his fucking calls at the line. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but it's not someone that we should have been like balls to the walls, like, man, this guy's going to be the, like, no, he is very, sure, he had a great play where he took the guy up with one arm while he was off balance and slammed him to the ground. That's awesome. Go look at, I mean, this other dude, Lucas Patrick, he plays nasty all the time. It's not once in a while. You have that he's got that nasty gear. Like, he likes to finish plays, and that's what we need. He's so on. That's what I'm saying. Like, this man told you his vision for this team, and he's executing this vision. You hated when Pace and Nagy were, and I'm not, hold on now. I'm not saying he's executing it. Let me backtrack. I'm in the middle, like you said before this show. I'm in the middle with Ryan Poles. But in terms of what he told us versus what he is doing, it's matching up. It's making sense.
Yeah, and I'm glad you kind of opened that up, because there is something, if I could speak directly to Bears Twitter here for a second, to the people who are buying into everything that Ryan Poles does. I saw some people that were saying that Ryan Poles is already better than Ryan Pace. And to the people who hate everything that Ryan Poles is doing, he thinks he has no direction. I'm sorry, but I genuinely believe you're both wrong. I think that's the wrong way to look at this right now. There is absolutely no way to know whether or not Ryan Poles is making the right moves. Like, he's not going out of his way to make any Jacksonville Jaguars moves where he's signing everybody. He's not blatantly ignoring the market, not signing anybody. It seems like he's being very strategic with what he's doing. It means that he has a plan in his head. Is it a good plan? We don't fucking know, but it's a plan. Like, something tells me that there's something in his head that makes sense to why he's doing what he's doing. And you have to give that a chance to happen. Am I defending him? No, I'm not, because I'm someone who personally was pretty blown away by the Khalil Mack trade, and that's fine. You can be blown away, you can be angry, you can be happy with something that he does, but look at it on a case-by-case basis, have a little bit of nuance, and be like, hey, if Poles is the guy, I'm in. If he's not, let's give him a little bit of time to figure it out. This is only year one. Not a single snap has been played with a Ryan Poles roster, and until it has, crowning him or burying him makes no sense to me.
Yeah, for sure. And for everyone that's like pretty much implying that Ryan Poles is a walking kickstand, like, it's very easy to fucking strip down a roster and bare the cupboards and stock up on draft capital. It's harder to build that roster back up. I mean, it's going to be easy for him to get C+ players like a Lucas Patrick or guys with potential like that. That's easy to do. He's already lowered our expectation in terms of, hey, we thought with Khalil Mack and all these guys on defense, maybe if we just build on offense, we have a chance to compete for a wild card spot, stuff like that. Like, the expectation has been lowered as soon as he got rid of Khalil Mack. And to me, that's also sends a huge notice. I know I'm like kind of referring back to the point, but sends a huge notice to everyone on the team. If Khalil Mack's not safe, none of you are safe. That's what it says to everybody. But no, I just think like it's easy to strip down a roster and get C+ players that are aftermarket and stuff like that. As soon as you get your roster to a certain point, though, like you can be happy with the direction things are going. One of the major things I admired about Ryan Pace is understanding where you're at in the process and being willing to go all in. Because at some point you will have to put your foot on the gas pedal. So it's great to be calculated, but do you want to be the fucking Colts where like you make low risk moves and your team's always solid as hell and you can have a run 1 year? Or do you want to be able to push all in? Because who knows? I mean, the ideal situation is being like the Ravens or the Steelers, who are just like continually drafting top tier talent. And that's what Poles says he wants his plan to be. But I mean, it is what it is, right?
Well, it seems like, and I don't want to refer to Khalil Mack in like a bad way here, but it seems like he's trimming the fat, yet trying to salvage what's there. That's where you see a signing like Larry Ogunjobi that makes so much sense. is it's a guy who, Larry's going to be 28 before the start of the season. Like it's not like he's necessarily like this young buck or anything. He's not old by any stretch of the imagination, but you'd think with a rebuilding team, because a lot of people throw the rebuilding term around a lot with us. With a rebuilding team, yeah, signing a 28-year-old defensive tackle doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But this honestly seems like a guy who's trying to build enough equity into the future while still trying to see what he has at the core to, to see what we have, to see if we can contend in the next few years. Like you said, the wild card spot would be a huge step for this team moving into next season if we were to sneak our way into the wild card this upcoming year, because of how much money we'd have to spend after. It's kind of similar to what the Colts did, actually. Now that you bring it up, once the Andrew Luck thing kind of fizzled out, they kind of realized, hey, we still have a lot of young talent here, but there are a lot of older players who will not be here for when that young talent finally starts showing up. So while we might like some of these older players, we're going to have to get rid of them and get some more money down the road so we can replace them once our younger guys are finally producing. So like that's how I see what Poles is doing. I could be totally fucking wrong, dude. He could sign Julio Jones tomorrow for $20 million a year for all I fucking know. But that's what would make sense to me, because you sign a guy, like I said, with Larry Ogunjobi, and we could potentially see a similar signing to this coming up as well. Addressing another position, even middle linebacker, to kind of help with Roquan in the middle, because we're going to need more linebackers. It seems like we're not rebuilding. He came here because I feel like he likes a lot of what's on the roster, but that doesn't mean that everyone on the roster is safe, like you said. So we're going to have to see. We're gonna have to let this play out for at least a year. We're gonna have to see what moves continue to get made. We're gonna see what positions get addressed. But yeah, overall, like, I think people just need to relax on the idea that we're not making big moves right now, because we haven't seen the entire plan yet.
For sure. And one thing I want to acknowledge about Ogunjobi and his contract is a lot of people seem to be extremely upset about his contract, even though they want to throw fucking tons of money at everyone else. But they're really upset with a guy that's an absolute perfect fit in the Eberflus defense. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Ogunjobi is going to have a similar impact as Khalil Mack would have, or anything along those lines. I'm not even going to come here and say he's a world beater. What I will say is he is a perfect scheme fit coming off of a career year on a prove-it deal. So the market for what he had, or for what he had gotten, don't look at his last year's average, because if you look at his last year's average, you're talking about how many guys had to take a discount because the cap floor was somehow risen and the cap ceiling was lowered. You know what I mean? COVID really fucked up last season. So you saw a lot of guys that, like Allen Robinson, he was like, I am unwilling to sign the franchise tag. And then he saw what wide receivers were getting, and he was like, nah, yeah, I'll sign that franchise tag. Like, it was very, like, there is going to be a bit of inflation in this offseason. Again, not Jacksonville Jagoff level, paying Christian Kirk with incentives up to $21 million a year. That's absurd money for a guy that's like, he's pretty good. Like, I would have been cool with him like at 11 million, but you know what I mean? I just think it's there's going to be some inflation there with the salary cap. And I think overall it's a very solid signing. And if you look at what they're doing with Ogunjobi, now Nicholas Moreau, they're building through the middle of their defense, the center of their defense back. And to me, I think Moreau goes off as one of the most underrated signings so far for sure, because you look at what his production was in Oakland, or whatever they want to call it now, Vegas. You look at his production, he was a damn good player. He's probably going to slot in at Sam linebacker if they run base, but realistically, he's that short side drop type of guy. So you get whatever hash you're on, he's going to go to the shorter side of the field. Roquan's going to drop into the deeper side of the field. He's way faster than people are saying. Everyone's kind of dogging him as a sideline to sideline type of guy. The dude can fly. I think he ran like 0.01 seconds slower than Roquan Smith. So he's a very, very talented player. And you want to talk about Ryan Poles staying on brand. What did he say? I like the guys with a chip on their shoulder. He's an undrafted player coming off of an injury, super motivated, getting paid. If he would have been healthy all last year. I'm not saying he's a $20 million a year guy, but like that's reserved for guys like Roquan. Like there is a different level between Moreau and Roquan, but they're perfect complements to each other. Like my guy Schlegdad, he said it the best. Like Moreau is not that dude. Roquan is that dude. You know what I'm saying? But Moreau is a very, very good player. Like you want to talk about Kwiatkowski level of impact or something along those lines. And Kwiatkowski turned out to be a really good starter for the Raiders as well. Like when he was healthy, he played really solid for them. But overall, I just want to say, he's the type of guy that you look at comp picks and you look at the future, right? He comes here off of an injury, has a awesome ass year, goes somewhere, gets paid $12 million. Now you have a 3rd round comp pick. You don't want those 7th and 6th round comp picks. Like, sure, it's great to have extra picks and maybe you could utilize them to trade, but it's those 3s and 4s. It's those guys in the top like 150 picks overall, because now you're getting the top half of the draft type of player. You know what I mean? So you want those big. And that's, I mean, you look at the teams that always have them. Who's always got 3rd round comp picks? The Ravens. Always, dude. Always. Because they're smart. They sign guys that other teams cut that they find value in it. They draft their own studs. Those studs go get paid. I mean, they did it with Parnell McPhee. They're doing it with Zadarius Smith now. And like, we're talking about, these are guys just that were like 3rd in their rotation. They let fucking Judon go. They let everybody go. And they keep bringing guys up. That's the type of program you want to run. And it looks like that's a direction, they're making smart moves. But like I said, you can't give this guy too much credit, because at some point you have to build your roster up. It's a lot easier to tear the motherfucker down than to build it up.
Well, and to my point, I've probably brought this up quite a few times now, but I really think that this is where Poles is going, is like, what's your best way to evaluate talent? Is your best way to evaluate talent putting somebody with a bunch of stars, or is it putting somebody with players that are pretty good, acceptable starters, and seeing what they can do with that? Like I could see them. I could see this being what Poles wants to do, is not bringing in star players to surround with guys like Roquan Smith, Eddie Jackson, Jalen Johnson. He could be bringing these types of guys in to see what they can do in a, not necessarily a dire situation, but what they can do with good players around them. Because any Super Bowl team that you look at, and you could look at the Kansas City Chiefs, which is exactly where Poles came from, there are stars on those teams, but they're not stars at every single position. There are a lot of players that take up a lot of responsibilities. Dude, look at what Tyrann Mathieu did in their secondary and how much room he covered for other players. Like, dude, what was it? Daniel Sorensen was starting at strong safety at one point. Like, are you fucking kidding me? You know what I mean? No offense, Daniel Sorensen, like lunch pail guy through and through, but like that's how you see the player cover for other players. You know what I mean? That's where you see how good a guy like Patrick Mahomes is, because, he doesn't have an insane amount of weapons. Obviously, it's Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, but he makes a lot of players around him better, as much as I kind of hate to admit that, because it's very obvious Patrick Mahomes reasons. And their offensive line wasn't necessarily a star cast either. It was just guys doing their job and the stars covering, for the guys that weren't necessarily that great. I'm probably explaining this like an asshole, but what I'm trying to get the point across is like, what can Justin Fields do with not ideal weapons, but a good scheme? What can Tevin Jenkins do, on a little bit of an island? Maybe we move Cody Whitehair over. Maybe we put Tevin at right tackle where he doesn't have a lot of experience next to him. What does Darnell Mooney do where he doesn't have an Allen Robinson opposite of him? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of questions. What does a Cole Kmet do when he is the number 1 tight end getting targets? There's a lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah.
And I could see this being a big talent evaluation type season.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is, Duke. And like, you did explain it like an asshole at first, but you really wrapped it up nicely. That's a great point. Specifically the Mooney point, right? Like, or the Cole Kmet point. What do you have in these guys on the roster? And I was kind of getting at that earlier, right? Like, is Darnell Mooney going to have similar production if he doesn't have what's technically the coverage dictator on the other side of him? There's games where Allen Robinson was not getting treated like a number 1, and there's games where he was out, where I'd say, Darnell Mooney still was getting that attention and still making plays. But no, that's
Darnell Mooney guy, by the way. I just want to clear that up.
No, it's a really nice way to put it, though. Overall, I just think like it's very clearly not a rebuilding year, but they're retooling and they're filling a lot of. I have a feeling they're going to start filling a lot of holes. as guys get cut in that second, third, fourth wave. Because you're right, like they're not competing for a Super Bowl right now, and you need to have some form of building blocks. Don't forget these second and third wave players. That's how Akeem Hicks got found. Akeem Hicks was not a world beater in New Orleans. He went to, I think, what was it, New England for a year, and like had one of those Belichick type resurgences. And then he came to the Bears and he finally was a perfect scheme fit. All that's because if you think of it, Dennis Allen, or not Dennis Allen, is it Dennis Allen? The guy in New Orleans, the defense coordinator?
Yeah, I think it would have been Dennis Allen.
They've been running a 4-3 for a while, right? And it's like people were talking about, hey, bring Hicks back. He could possibly play. No, it's like he was not nearly as effective in a 4-3. New Orleans drafted him in a 4-3. It's just like some of the stupidity that happens on that app, Twitter, is absurd to me. It's like just connect the dots, big homie. Like just use your brain. I promise you, it will get you further. But I mean, that's kind of all I got. Is there any free agents that you would like the Bears to look at now? Personally, strategy wise, I know a lot of people want a number one wide receiver. I wanted one too. Thought the only one was Amari Cooper. Really, like if Godwin made it, someone like that I would have really liked, or even DJ Chark I would have liked. Which that's one of those 5 guys where I'm like, I see his number, I'm like, see, they should have grabbed him. Like that's a 1-year prove it deal. He's been productive in the past. But to me, it's like there's not anyone worthwhile that's going to be a true number one receiver. So I feel like, to me, I'd rather invest that in the offensive line and get some guys and get some depth there just to make sure Justin's healthy and upright. There's going to be some good second round receivers. I fucking went into a really deep dive on David Bell. I started doing just quick study of all the top receivers and the guys that your boy Treylon Burks is a fucking freak, by the way. He's way too fast to play that big. That's my main note on him. He is to me, Drake London is one of those guys. I know I'm going on a rant here, but Drake London's one of those guys where like, I don't know how well his game translates because it's built on him being way fucking bigger than all the DBs he's running into. Like all of his highlights are him just like crushing through DBs like he's a fucking tight end. Like that's not going to happen in the NFL, big dog. Like that is going to change quickly. Whereas like Treylon Burks is a freak. And David Bell, to me, really reminds me of those second round guys. I was hating on David Bell before, but the more I got into his film, I mean, I was up till like 3 a.m. on a work night last night because I'm like, dude, this guy's really fucking good. And I think his game translates because his game is not built off athleticism. It's built off footwork, which is like a Keenan Allen or a Devontae Adams trait. Both of those guys are not burners in any way. And he's really tough after the catch, bro. He's definitely not going to avoid contact. He's really good after the catch. His ability to like track and just be able to bend and move in air. Plummer was a dog shit quarterback, and this man still was making miraculous catches and just completely doing like, 180s in air to track the ball. So I think his skill set really translates well, and I think he's going to be there. He might even fall to the third. At least that's what it's looking like in mock drafts. Now, mock drafts are usually dog shit, but that's one of those guys that's always around, him and George Pickens. And if it's between those two, I'm taking David Bell 1,000 times out of 1,000.
Yeah, man. That's a really good point, and it's something I've had to talk about with Treylon Burks. David Bell. I've always liked David Bell as well. The thing about those two guys is it's hard to say that whenever they were on the field in college that they weren't one of, if not the best player on the field, like football player. That's simply it. Like Treylon Burks might not look great on a 40-yard dash time. He looks fast on film. He plays very fast and he plays very big. David Bell is the same way. He's not a guy who is a burner by any sense of the imagination, but he is so good at getting space. Like, and that's something you can't buy, not every guy. And that's where I feel like a lot of fans they gauge a lot of their football opinions on Madden. And I'm not going to touch too far on this, but like everyone wants this like Julio Jones in 2010 or like fucking Tyreek Hill. It's the absolute burners, because we can just call 4 verticals every time, have a cannon arm quarterback just throw to fucking Tyreek Hill every play. That's not how the NFL works. Like even the Chiefs have had a lot of times where their offense has gotten very stagnant because that shit doesn't work all the time, And that's when you're looking at receiver, man. You don't want to end up drafting a John Ross because you're so obsessed with their speed that you don't actually look at how good of a player they are on the field. Like there's been no game film I have watched where Treylon Burks hasn't been the best player on the field. Like, I say that confidently, even when they played against Alabama, which Alabama's defense is always full of first round picks. Treylon Burks was the best player on the field at all times. And you could say that with David Bell as well. Even playing Wisconsin, dude, I'm a huge Wisconsin nut. David Bell is a fucking problem because he is so good at getting separation. He's so good at making plays after the catch. He's a hard guy to tackle, man. He's a very gritty type fucking wide receiver. And dude, that's
my draft crush now.
People are always surprised when guys like this go off. They're like, oh wow, nobody really saw this coming. He didn't do too good at the combine. It's like, well, that's your first fucking problem. Combine does not measure a football player, it measures an athlete. And you need a football player, you don't need an athlete. You know, like I hate bringing him up because of how everything ended with him. But dude, Alshon Jeffrey didn't look great at the fucking combine. Alshon Jeffrey, in his last bowl game he ever played, he punched another player in the face, and his draft stock fucking plummeted. But guess what? If you ever watched Alshon Jeffrey at South Carolina, best player on the field at all times.
And I think it's so clear when Purdue plays. Like, it's so clear that he is the best player on the field. And when you want to talk about 40 times and stuff like that, someone that runs I think what did he run, like a 4.61, which is very slow for a wide receiver. If you really want to, break it down, it's not good. But and you got what's an average DB time, maybe like a 4.4, 4.43, for a DB. Like, the fast ones are running the 4.2s, which is absurd. But a 4.2 guy is not going to catch, if you hit someone on a double move and get 5 yards behind him, you're still gone. That's still a touchdown. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking margin. And when you're, like I said, when your game is built off of footwork and not athleticism, that's why you shouldn't look at long speed. You shouldn't look at a 40 time. You know what I mean? I don't even care about the cone drill. It's very clear that footwork is. Now, if you're one of those guys like a DK Metcalf, yeah, you better run fast because you can't fucking run diagonally. You need to run fast at the combine. But when you're running almost every route on the route tree and you're playing bully ball after the catch, and then you're going up above guys that are fucking a foot taller than you and making just – I'll tell you right now, you know why I like him so much? Because he's the anti-Allen Robinson. Anytime there was a play where a defender got their hand on the balls together, that was it. It was his ball. There's no doubt. He's got some strong-ass fucking hands. There's one play, actually, where Plummer threw a clear pick to the defender. They both went up. He grabbed it, and he stripped it out of his hands and then caught the ball on the sideline. Like, that is ridiculous.
I really like that term, bully ball, because, dude, that's the type of shit my boy Treylon does too, man.
Oh, yeah, no, he's a different level. I don't think there's a chance he gets to the second round.
Yeah, well, I'm really hoping he does fall, because I feel like, and that's my official draft prediction. I don't see this changing. And I did it kind of similar to like when Cole Kmet was drafted. I'm like, dude, if Cole Kmet drops to us, there's absolutely zero chance we can pass on him. If Treylon Burks falls to 39, we cannot pass on him. There's zero fucking shot.
There's no shot you can. There's no shot you can.
Yeah, but to answer one of your questions from earlier, because I didn't really give an opinion, I guess, on free agency.
Oh yeah, we went to a fat rant.
No, hey man, it fucking happens. I wouldn't. I'm past the point of trying to get a number one receiver. I'm kind of with you there, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm completely turned off by the receiver pool right now. I want someone opposite of Darnell Mooney to, take a little bit of tension off him. A guy to be able to stretch the field. Like I've gotten battered for this take, and I feel like his price gets lower every single day that goes by that he doesn't get signed. But I feel like us taking a shot on a guy like MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling on a cheap deal. I really think
deal, sure, but people are projected he's going to get like 10.5 a year, and that's fucking stupid.
See, dude, if he would have got that, I feel like he would have got that already. I genuinely don't think he's going to have that type of market. And I could see that if it gets too low, that the Packers could end up taking him back. But I really feel like Luke Getsy is going to want at least one Packers wide receiver to come with him to Chicago, just because he was a wide receivers coach. And, I think MVS, dude, I could beat a dead horse about how much his drops have been terrible throughout his career. Like, there's no denying that. I can't defend that. but he is a guy that gets so much fucking separation off the line. He can beat man coverage and he can outrun zone. Even if we're not throwing him the ball, the fact that he's able to stretch an offense gives Darnell Mooney like the middle of the field to just work with, because MVS takes a safety every time he's there. And that's why a guy like Davante Adams loves playing with him. And that's why a guy like Aaron Rodgers loves having him on his roster, because even when he's not throwing him the ball, he causes so much attention because he's so much of a home run hitter that it leaves a guy like Davante Adams open, where you can get those 10, 15 chunk yards, dude. And
yeah,
I'm all about a methodical offense. Like, I love being able to just chunk our way down the field, and having a legit deep threat really helps that. Now, is he going to be legit number one? No. I think if you sign him and you don't like address,
you're lucky if he gives you wide receiver 4 production. Let's be real.
I wouldn't go that far, because he has averaged around 20 yards per reception. Stop it.
Sure,
he can stretch the
great.
field.
For him.
He can stretch the field.
You have a quarterback that's throwing 5,000 fucking yards, and you're getting like,
dude, 20. How come nobody else stretches the field on the Packers like that? Davante Adams doesn't go deep. Fucking Allen Lazard doesn't go deep.
Davante Adams doesn't have that speed.
But that's what I mean. Like, he's a guy who has that type of speed and separation.
I think you can get a really fast fucking guy in the draft, no problem, in the 5th round, and have him go run streaks. Like, I disagree with you there. I would rather have as much as I don't like Juju as a human being, I would rather have a guy like Juju. If we're going to sign,
he's going to cost significantly more than MVS.
No, that's the thing. His price tag seems to be dropping a ton too, because they tried him out as the number 1. And then that AB tweet went viral with the Boo Boo Schuster. Dude, I die to that tweet every single time. But yeah, he's showed that he wasn't a true number 1, and then he's coming off an injury. Who knows? Maybe he takes a 1-year, $8 million deal. Like, I would be okay with that. Now, if they're trying to pay him $15 million a year, fuck off. Well, but I really like what he adds in the screen game and as a blocker, and I really like what he adds in the running game as a blocker. And he is that underneath guy that you can, hey, we need 4 or 5 yards. Like, let's give him a little wide receiver screen, and he's physical after the catch is what I'm getting at. So I think he complements Mooney a little bit better, because Mooney can stretch the field. That's not his forte. He's way better than just stretching the field. But if you got someone showing him attention, I think realistically he's Juju could be a more physical version of what A-Rob played in offense. You know what I mean? Or kind of play that I don't want to say play that Davante Adams role, but more that Allen Lazard role.
Well, I still feel like a guy who has had over 1,000 yard seasons and has actually shown flashes of being a legit player will get more money than an MVS. I legit don't think MVS's like market is that strong. That's why I like that idea, because I don't think there's a shot in hell he gets 10 million a year. Like, I don't think he even hovers around that. Like, I think he's a guy who's never caught for 1,000 yards. He's a deep shot guy. He's about 27, 28 at this point. So, like, he's looking for like a 2-year deal that can get him decent money. It's not going to be anything crazy. And I feel like if you can get him in like the 5 to 6 range, I don't think that's bad at all. And I think he's a guy that could, like I said, I think he can stretch the field. Like, even if we're not targeting him like 6, 7 times a game, like, it just opens up so much for everyone else.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, listen, wide receivers are going to be expensive no matter what. So a 5-6 mil a year, like that contract's not going to bother me. But I mean, the Bears got Goodwin on a vet minimum deal last year, and same thing with Bird. Like, if you could find fucking warm bodies for vet minimum deals, I think Pringle could add a nice little element to the offense in general. I think he can definitely take the top off of defense, and I think he'll have a reasonable price tag as well. But overall,
yeah, I don't hate.
There's nothing on the list that excites me. The only thing that really was on that list that excited me after the initial first round of everything was, Cooper, who we knew was going to be traded or cut, or DJ Chark. Everyone else was kind of like, man, they're going to get paid too much.
Man, and the thing with fucking DJ Chark is like, I would take the contract Detroit gave him all day.
That's what I'm saying. Chark had some production. Like, I think GMs are savvy enough to know that Juju's one enormous season was next to AB as a number 2. And he was the beneficiary of that. Whereas like Chark, like that's why I think Juju's deal could be pretty low. Cause like, I think Chark has shown more in his rookie contract than Juju did. Am I crazy for saying that? And they're both coming off injuries.
I I think the one thing that will work in Juju's favor, and I'm not trying to just sit here and defend Juju, but he also had kind of the last 3 years of Ben Roethlisberger that didn't necessarily help anything. Because if we're being real, dude, even a guy like Mitch Trubisky is going to be a fucking night and day upgrade over a guy like Ben
Who the
Roethlisberger, where he
fuck was
was.
playing quarterback for the Jaguars?
Well, yeah, that's fair. But I think
who was their fucking quarterback?
well, dude, and you're talking to someone who fucking loves DJ Chark. That's not like the downside here. But I mean, I guess to be fair, he had fucking Minshew, and Minshew, dude,
He's got moxie.
people are so quick to trash Gardner Minshew, but I feel like every time he's ever played, he's shown it.
Yeah.
Like, dude, he's not a guy that's
Duke.
Yeah, he's not going to go off for 3 fucking touchdowns every single game, but like I don't think he gets enough credit as a quarterback at all. But
I like Minshew. He's got moxie. Like that's last year when we were going through Mitch leaving and everything. I was like, why not trade for Minshew? Like, to me, that's a guy that's probably pissed off, got a chip on his shoulder.
Dude, look what he did anytime he had to start for Jalen Hurts, man. He fucking showed out.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we're coming up pretty deep on time now.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. All right, well, I guess
else you want to talk about, or
no, I mean, I think we basically got it covered. Everyone's just freaking out about the Bears per usual. That's pretty fucking normal. We're not going nuts in free agency, which I'm totally cool with. And once this like big wave of signings happens, and then we start kind of churning away at some of the depth pieces, I guess on offense and defense, we're going to start having to focus on the draft, and that's really where a lot of my attention is going to start going.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I have a feeling we're going to see another slew of cuts after some moves are made and they fill some of the roster spots with guys that they like at a good value. I think you're going to see another round of cuts. So, yeah, it might not be the end of it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised.
Another question I asked too. I'm sorry to divulge, but I know our boy Joseph. Loves what's his name, Jesper Horsted. You're probably gonna hear this typing. I'm sorry about that. But Jesper Horsted, like, why can't he be tried out as like a bigger receiver? Because to me, it's like
I always like to toy with this idea, especially because I thought Greg Olsen could have made a fucking legit wide receiver. I always had that idea.
I mean, he's 6'4", 240, but I want to say he converted, didn't he, at some point? Didn't he gain weight to play tight end? Or am I thinking of maybe?
I'm not sure, honestly. I guess I don't have like the total background of Jesper Horsted.
Yeah, Joe will let us know.
I really would like to see Jesper fucking get a bigger role in the offense. If I'm being honest, I wouldn't mind him being the number 2 tight end to fucking Cole Kmet. Like I
was really happy that they tendered him or whatever they did with him to retain him.
Well, dude, I think at the very least you got to see what you have in him. Because, he showed a lot of flashes with us, preseason, sure. But like even in the regular season, like when he had opportunities, like he showed some flashes. And I feel like, Getsy probably sees that on film and he's like, well, let's see if I can do something with him. Like, dude, you're looking at the guy that has to get some responsibility for fucking Robert Tonyan fucking going off. And nobody saw that coming because, dude, nobody in their right mind thinks a guy named Robert Tonyan is going to be a fucking good tight end in the NFL, if I'm just being honest. But like, why not? Why can't Jesper Horsted be that type of guy? I'm not saying he has to be fucking 500 yards, 10 touchdowns or anything like that. But like,
he was a wide receiver.
He was?
I fucking knew it. I was like going between him and Ives, but I believe he was a wide receiver and he gained weight to play tight end, which I don't understand. Maybe it's like due to his testing and he figured he'd have a better chance of getting drafted if he switched to tight end and put on some weight because he ran really slow or something like that. I don't know, but I just looked here. He was an Ivy League wide receiver. It just says Princeton wide receiver. So unless that's
okay, Princeton. Listen, I'm not trying to say anything about the illustrious Ivy League and the athletes that they have out there, but being a wide receiver at fucking Princeton feels a lot different about being a wide receiver in the NFL, man.
Listen, he played the position.
Well, dude, hey, if you want to line him up in the slot every once in a while, I'm cool with that.
Mr. I don't fucking helmet scout. Okay, whatever. Dork. We're done with this podcast.
Right, whatever, man.
I don't helmet scout, but he played wide receiver for an Ivy League school.
Yeah, whatever, dude. All
right. You're fucking Ben Veronica reincarnated.
All right, yeah, dude. I hate you so much, Lucas, but here we are.
Make sure you follow us at every on Twitter at barely there, BEAR, barely there pod. Right.
Yeah, follow us at Barely There Pod on Twitter. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple, whatever your favorite podcasting setup is. If you listen on Google Play, I'm sorry. Like
you need to up your fucking game anyways.
Like we'll figure it out.
Dog shit. No,
yeah,
I think we should disregard it.
Like you can try like blaming us for not having your favorite podcasting like fucking like medium, but you should like Lucas said, you should really up your game. What are you doing?
Just upgrade your life in general. Yeah, Google Play Store is garbage. You can get Spotify.
Like I bet you just use fucking what is it? Internet Explorer. I guarantee you're an Internet Explorer user if you're still using fucking Google Play podcasting.
Jesus they're Christ. Probably still subscribed to Playboy and shit like that. They're prehistoric. they're just straight up using magazines at this point.
Fucking still getting centerfolds on the wall. But anyway, on that, like I said, subscribe, rate us, dude. That goes a long way. Subscribe on YouTube. YouTube is a big way for us to really kind of grow, especially to a different audience. Like, come on, we all know those like awesome YouTube creators out there, and me and Lucas kind of want to crack in on that a little bit. But
Jake
dude,
Paul guys.
Huh?
Big Jake Paul guys.
Yeah, dude, obviously, fucking love the Paul brothers. But you can actually comment on YouTube, which will actually show up on our streams. Twitter is still just terrible what they're doing with that. But so fan engagement. Go subscribe to YouTube. Think it, dream it, do it. Think it, dream it, do it. Subscribe to our YouTube.
We've gone well off the fucking rails.
But anyway, that's all I've got. I'm Duke Coughlin. That's Lucas Perfetti. Bear down.
Bear down. Yeah, we'll be back next week.
Oh, shit.